as you were saying, I mean, I feel like the perception of Ragnarok's ZVT is literally just Ragnarok versus Maru. Like, I think, I think that just left such a lasting impression, and I understand where you're coming from 100%. You know, we've seen him struggle a lot against the likes of Maru, but you know, Oliveira is a different beast, and I do think that the skill gap here is a little bit smaller than it otherwise would be against Maru, for example. And fun fact, this is a bit of a rematch. Last week in the KSL, I was lucky enough to cast these two face off as well. It was a pretty close series, but RagnaroK did come out on top.
Oh boy! We'll see if revenge will happen. As we load straight into Gressvan, we're in the top left-hand quarter of the map, starting all the way in that top left-hand quarter. We have our red Zerg player coming down from the land of Korea, representing Mystery Gaming, MYG. Got it there in the end. We have RagnaroK.
And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Gressvan, we have as opponent, we have the Chinese Terran player, the reigning world champion representing KranKy Gaming. It is Oliveira.
And of course, as is tradition, we're going to be kicking off this TvZ on the Terran map.
Exactly, Poppy.
That's why I'm a TVT map.
Yeah, Gressvan, there are a lot of features of this map that can be taken advantage of, especially the center location. If we do end up pushing quite aggressively, then Oliveira can snowball out of control. And we've seen that happen time and time again against Dark. Oliveira versus Dark is kind of what springs to mind, where if a player is maybe a little bit too greedy or if they aren't aware of what's going on, then Oliveira can look so powerful on Gressvan. Otherwise, we could end up going into a longer game, but thinking about the players a little bit, like, I don't think RagnaroK himself wants a longer game in this matchup either.
Pretty much never, right? When was the last time we seen RagnaroK go into a late game ZVT? And conversely, when's the last time we really saw Oliveira go into or initiate a late game TvZ? Because, you know, he has played a lot of them pretty recently. I mean, his match against Raynor at ESL, his match against Dark in KS. Was KSL or was it Open Cup America? It's one or the other. You know, but what I'm getting at is that Oliveira can play late game, but he prefers to end the game earlier on in the mid game.
Yeah, exactly. He's willing to, but does he really want to? And the answer is probably not, and that goes probably for both players as well. We have been casting a little bit of Oliveira versus Cyril recently in the Kung Fu Cups, in the KFCs.
True.
But to be fair, like, just because Cyril is so good, like, Oliveira is kind of forced to play late game against him, and I don't think that's a dynamic that we're necessarily going to see between him and RagnaroK, for example.
Yeah, two very, very different players. Cyril does like himself some macro play. He does like himself some, you know, regular stuff. RagnaroK, he looks at standard play and he chucks it all out.
Yeah, get out of here, Poppy. He's like me in pants.
Oh. Wait, what? He burns it.
he burns all the late game. It's beautiful. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. We can already see a bit of a difference here. RagnaroK is going to be making a massive amount of links, far more than is normal right now, and it looks like RagnaroK, he wants to try and avoid and bypass this Reaper. He's going to slip out around the edge of the map and try and hit Oliveira where it hurts, in the natural.
Yeah, he's already starting to saturate that a little bit. There is no wall in sight, and he only has a handful of Marines right now, as he did go for a little bit of a greedier opening here with the 2-1-1.
Yeah, it's a 3cc 2-1-1, which means 0 Hellions, which means what is the answer to these things? The wall is a wall just in time, but now the natural base is forfeit. So many SCVs are going to go down. Yeah,
Oliveira's trying to kite them back so that they can be supported by the Marines, but regardless, this is too much DPS. 8 SCVs and a Mule have already gone down, and RagnaroK doesn't have to commit. That was all he needed to do, realistically.
Back at home, he's just droning heavily, saturating his natural, saturating his third base as well. I'm sure he would have liked to have caught the Marines. If the Marines were on the low ground, then they probably all would have gone down as well, because they are vanilla Marines, no stim. But thankfully, Oliveira had to happen to have them in the main base instead, I think to deny the Overlord Scout. So could have been a lot worse here for Oliveira, but he does take quite an economic loss, and now the pressure is on him to do damage once he does have his medevacs out.
Yeah, the silver lining to all this, I would say, though, is that he did go for a 3cc build, so yeah, he can recover. He's going to be behind for quite a bit, but it's already an orbital command. He can throw down a couple of mules. We do see a little bit of an interesting adjustment here. I'm not sure if this is a response to the early game damage, or if this is what Oliveira planned to do all along. He didn't swap the add-ons with around with his starport and factory. He is instead starting to make Hellions and one medevac at a time.
I love this. Just as you said, I do think this is a reaction because he took so much damage. He's going to assume that RagnaroK is droning and maybe being a little bit too greedy. And now suddenly this 2-1-1 push becomes much more deadlier because we have Hellions, we have an armory on the way. This is going to be a 2-1-1 push with Hellbats.
Yeah, RagnaroK has scouted this with his one Ling, but does he have anything at home that can really deal with this? He's got a lot of Lings, but there's no way he can get them. Get them on top of these Hellbats.
There's no Baneling Nest. I'm shocked right now.
There's no Baneling Nest.
Yeah, the Baneling Nest only just now starts in the main base. Pure Ling and Queen to deal with this push. We'll see if he can pull it off. We'll see how well the surround is as Lings are coming in from behind.
So greedy. It's all about positioning right now. Good snipes here on these medevacs from RagnaroK. But all of these Lings do just melt to the Hellbats.
Yeah.
Medevacs have gone down, which is absolutely huge, but there's no response to the actual damage. GG is called, and Oliveira just out all in RagnaroK.
GG, well played. That was such a smart move out of Oliveira, and it happened to be the correct move as well. He was just hoping that his opponent was just too greedy. I'm shocked by how delayed that Baneling Nest was from RagnaroK as well. Again, like, he was going for the correct response against a 2-1-1. Like again, there shouldn't be any Hellions, there shouldn't be any Hellbats. Queen Ling should be more than enough to deal with that, but the Hellbats just changed everything.
Hell yeah. There's a part of me that keeps, thinking, maybe if the Lings didn't quite surround that army all at once, maybe if he hung back a little bit and targeted down the Hellbats, but yeah, then the other part of me remembers that, there were 16 Marines with stim in that army. Even without medevac support, they would absolutely shred through those queens.
100%. And not just that, it's also Oliveira controlling that army, It's like,
yeah.
Could RagnaroK, could he have controlled that better? Sure, but he's still up against Oliveira, and I'm sure he would have done his best to control his units as efficiently as possible. We saw one medevac go down. As soon as that happened, Oliveira, he was so careful with the second one as well. The positioning on his Hellbats was beautiful, annihilating every single Ling, and yeah, that was just a really nice adaptation from our Terran player there in game 1.
Yeah, they don't call him the Bjorn of the West for nothing.
Exactly. The West?
I'm trying to think of a cool... Yeah, because, China is west of Korea.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a cooler nickname than just Chinese Bjorn.
Fair enough.
Shanghai Bjorn.
Oh. The Bjorn from...
Shanghai Bjorn?
The Bjorn from Shanghai? The
Bjorn with a gun? As we think about it, we are going to be jumping into Neo-Humanity for game number 2. This is what I'm more used to. I'm going from macro to short. Back into macro, I assume. Here we are now in the top left-hand corner map, spawning all the way to the top left-hand corner. Our red Zerg player coming down from the land of Korea, representing Mystery Gaming, MYG. We have RagnaroK.
And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Neo-Humanity, we have his opponent. We have the Chinese Terran player, the reigning world champion, representing CranKy Gaming, leading this series 1-0. It is Oliveira. Just unfortunately, RagnaroK in that last game, resting on his laurels a little bit, did a great job initially, crippling the economy of his opponent, but You can't take things for granted. Scouting is paramount, and he was unable to confirm the Hellion production or the Armory follow-up, and unable to piece things together in time to recognize it. Oh, like if I can't, he needed to throw down his Bailey Nest ASAP. If you can't get a Bailey Nest, then maybe some Spine Crawlers, just anything else other than just pure Ling Queen. Oh, that was an intense game there for both players.
Yeah, a little bit of a faulty alarm system going in there for RagnaroK, because he did scout the Hellions just before they pushed out over there, but took a little while for him to really realize, wait a minute, this isn't just a 2-on-1.
Yeah, exactly. He needed to connect the dots a little bit better there, and I'm sure eventually he did, but by the time he did, it was a little bit too late. So again, shout out to Oliveira for being so decisive with his follow-up. I'm sure he's been in that situation many, many times. And now we're here in game number 2. We're here, surprisingly, on Near Humanity. That's what I love about this tournament. Yo, they're not afraid. They're not afraid, Bobby.
Yeah. Of humanity. They're just not afraid to whip it out in a best of. We've seen a couple of these players also take advantage of the unique features of this map. I'm not sure if this is like an illusion light, if I'm noticing patterns that aren't there, but I feel like I've seen a lot more Zerg players take the rich Vespene base nowadays.
Yeah, definitely, especially
early on.
Yeah, especially in ZVP. I think that's probably the most common matchup to do that on. We have seen it here against Terran as well, especially by some more aggressive Zerg players like your Dark, sometimes even Raynor as well, to go for these big 1-1 Roach timing attacks. But for the time being, it looks like RagnaroK hasn't gone for that center base. He's opted against it. And yeah, likewise is going to be going for a much more standard opener for the time being.
Yeah, and I can't say I blame him too much here. He is down in this best-of-3 series. One more loss, and he is eliminated from ESL Open Cup Asia, number 179.
Yeah, definitely, and I think we expect, I mean, to be fair, we expect both players to go far. It's such a shame that they're facing off so early on. We haven't been able to go over the bracket yet, but there's a reason for it. You know, we just have so many players this week. We have so much high-quality talent as well. Unfortunately, some big names do have to hit each other early on.
Yeah, we actually have a surprising amount of signups today. A lot of players who you don't normally see, who I would have assumed would have been on a plane by now. True. For those wondering, DreamHack is a couple of days away. DreamHack Yongzhiping or ESL Masters. Yeah. The open bracket is on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the open bracket is on Wednesday, a couple of days away, and so far these players still haven't left. Or actually, I did hear.
Oh, they're playing from the airport.
True. They could be playing on airport Wi-Fi. That's very possible. Especially in Korea, you know, the internet's pretty good. You could totally do that. But I did hear some rumors. I don't know if there's confirmation, but I did hear that some Chinese players were having a really hard time getting visas. So I don't know if Oliveira is actually going.
Me.
Yeah, so
that'd be a shame.
It would be a really big shame if he couldn't go. Again, that's just something that I heard. I don't know that for certain. So hopefully things have been cleared up, and hopefully he is going.
Yeah. Hopefully we do see him and Coffee, who are both directly seeded into the second stage of the event. I just want to see me some Coffee, man.
Yeah, we thought he had
retired. I want to see Coffee versus Cyril.
Oh no! Why do you hate Cyril so much? What's going on, Coffee? Leave him alone.
He needs to experience it. You know, Rainer's played Coffee before. You know.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying, Cyril.
I'm sure we'll see that come together, as behind this we did have a one-on-one opener into a third CC, which is being taken as we speak. Meanwhile, the bench is doing a lot of damage. The Hellions are looking for an opening. Right now, Oliveira is trying to force these queens out of position and then dive on in, but the Lings are staying here at the third base, waiting for those Hellions.
Yeah, we don't have an army over here, so Hellions can actually get surrounded by Lings. Oliveira recognizes this, and he turns around and plays it safe. But not for too much longer, because that is 4 or 5 Braxes on the way.
Yeah, this is looking like the beginnings of an 8-Rax. Off of 3 bases, this can work wonders, especially if you don't go for your 2 gases here at the 3rd base. But I think there's an SCV queued up to maybe head over towards that 4th to take a base. If not, Oliveira is going to have a massive, massive power spike here once all these Raxes do kick in.
This is a brick that isn't floppy, if I do say so myself.
This brick, it's pretty hard. It's hard. It's firm. It's long. It's Oliveira.
Oh. It's what we call this build, 8 racks. 8 racks about a 4th base, colloquially referred to as the brick armory. It may be a little late, but at this point, I think Oliveira will just have so much army that, yeah, 2-2 is not going to matter that much.
Yeah, exactly. Oliveira wants to push out, and on a map like Neo Humanity, because the rush distance is so short, this really can overwhelm and overpower an unexpected Zerg player, especially if they take up too much. So far, there's plenty of Lingbane on the ground. 1-1 is about to kick in, but RagnaroK is taking into Hydras, so he's going to be spending a lot of money or resources in Lingbane Hydra, and we'll see if he gets caught being too greedy, because here we go, the push is being set up here on the left-hand side of the map.
Yeah, 91 army supply for the Terran player and 70 for the Zerg player. This is terrifying right now. RagnaroK is going to have some of the most perfect Baneling connections, and then some extra luck after that in order to push us back.
Yeah, exactly. And here we go. We do have a bit of a Ling run by here at the 3rd base location, and they're going to be forcing all the boys off the line. But at the same time, here we go. Oliveira is laying siege for the 4th. Oh.
Very quick pull back here from Oliveira. He's being very, very careful and deliberate with his tanks as well. I love him blocking off a surround path earlier on, making it just that much harder for RagnaroK to really deal with this. 5th base will go down, and there's no sign of Oliveira stopping at that.
Yeah, I love him too, Yakua. As the tanks are just slowly inching forward towards that 3rd base. We have RagnaroK setting up for a surround. Oliveira does get his 3rd base back up and running, so only for a moment was he stuck on the 2-base economy. He can now focus on the rest of his army. 2-2 on the way, no 4th base. Oliveira is very committed with this push.
And he has to be. He has no intention of getting a 4th base. This is, like we said, just a full-on brick. 3 base all-in with 8 Raxes. He's reducing 11 Marines at a time. But if he loses his army, then RagnaroK is going to have such a huge moment to counterattack. Look at how spread out these tanks are. Yeah. My God.
Like Oliveira, he can pull back for days. Like, he has so many different, like, kind of reinforcement points for his army. The Lingbane pushes on forward. Oliveira trading so damn well against RagnaroK right now, and he's waiting for RagnaroK to push in, and here we go. He's going for it.
Yeah, RagnaroK has to try something. He has to try for a surround, but it's too little, too late. There were already tanks everywhere to cover just about every single Marine. Nothing is holding Oliveira back anymore.
Yeah, 0 Banelings are ready for this. We have Banelings being morphed in, but it's a little bit too little too late. GG gets called, and Oliveira will take the 2-0.
And as we expected, he takes the 2-0 in less than 25 minutes.
GG, well played. The 8-Rax is very potent, very powerful, as you saw. There's not much longevity with that army, but it hits so hard, and RagnaroK wasn't quite ready for it. He was maybe a little bit too greedy. Typically, I'm not going to apply this to all players, but typically it is a little bit too greedy to go for Hydras when you're going up against an 8-Rax, because you just need pure Lingbane. You need so much Lingbane, not just to engage, but to commit, to try and get on top of those tanks, to try and push the army away. It can be really difficult to hold otherwise. On top of that, because it's Neo Humanity as well, things snowball very quickly out of control. Like, it doesn't take long for the Terran player to reinforce.
It really doesn't. You know, there are like a handful of players out there where their Hydralists actually seem to have more health, so it actually is worthwhile to grab a Hydra then and to try to go for surrounds. But for 90% of Zerg players, that is way too greedy. You need to match the Terran players' absurd production capabilities with an obscene amount of supply for yourself. So like you said, Lingbane is pretty much all you want in a scenario like that. But RagnaroK, just really wanted to make Hydralisk work when, yeah, unfortunately he is not in that top 5% of Zerg players who can pull that off.
Definitely, and it's also
I can't actually think of any right now who are like still active.
Yeah.
I would say Rogue, but you know, Rogue's in the military.
Feels bad, man. Feels rogue, man. But yeah, RagnaroK, I'm sure he just assumed that the game would go on longer. He wasn't able to recognize the 8 Rex in time with the scouts. And again, I'm sure as well, there was a gas being taken at the third base as well, which, you know, I'm sure was utilized to kind of mask that in a way. And oh, yeah, it was a rough series for RagnaroK. He does get eliminated from the tournament, and Oliveira advances on into the quarterfinals, where we can have a look at the bracket.
Yeah.